Today on the program, we discuss some issues arising from the fallout of the recently concluded NBA elections, the move by some people to form a parallel bar association, and insinuations that there's a kingmaker in the legal profession. My guest is a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, senior advocate of Nigeria, Augustine Alege. He was the president who, during his tenure, steered the association down the path of electronic voting. Also showing on the program, lawyers react to the tribunal judgment nullifying the return of Governor Doye Diri of Bayelsa State, the pronouncement of fresh elections in the state, plus our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Sheyeli. My guest, Augustine Alege SAN, is the former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. After the elections that brought him into office as president in 2014, Mr. Alege admitted that there was a need to reform the electoral process of the bar. When the association adopted universal suffrage and e-voting during his tenure, it was with the hope that it would eliminate real or perceived manipulations that had dogged previous elections of the bar. But sadly, this has not been so. I sat down with the 27th president of the bar to get his views on why controversies continue to trail the bar elections and what the bar needs to learn to get it right.
I believe that as a people, we are not always good losers. Out of the first 10. And when people lose elections, they try and situate blame in other areas. I believe that the 2016 election was free and fair. And at the end of the election, we invited both candidates. And we said the electronic voting system had the capacity of printing out the ballots with the names of those that voted. And if you want to interrogate the system, you can come and interrogate the system. President Abiy Mahmoud was receptive of the idea if JK, who was complaining, was willing to come, but JK declared himself sick and did not turn up. So it is easy to stay in the comfort of your home and complain. And of course, he went to court, and then he lost. What leads people to court is this false sense of entitlement. The owners of the office are the voters. And if the voters don't vote for you, we still run a secret ballot system. It's this sense of entitlement. You feel entitled, and when you then lose the election, you are unable to face reality. I will tell you my own position. At NEC in Sokoto, when I was the NBA president, I made a proposition to NEC that since we are a professional body, and electronic voting has the capability of publishing every lawyer's name and who he voted for, why don't let us adopt that more? They said no, it's secret ballot. And they made the point that if you tell everybody who voted for whom, it could affect the smooth operation of the bar. People start to say, this did not vote for me, that did not vote for me. As you are aware, Mr. Atobio Okafor went to court, and again he lost. And in the current elections, I make the point with a sense of seriousness. We had 3 candidates for president. We had 5 for first vice. We had 2 for second vice. We had 4 for general secretary. We had 3 for assistant secretary, 2 for welfare, 2 for publicity, and 2 for assistant publicity. Total number of candidates, 23. Every other person out of these 23 accepted the result but one person, my good friend and brother, Dikindele Adesina. So when we started saying the election was mad, out of 23 candidates, one winner, the other 21 for president, so one winner for president, the other 21 have accepted. Only one person is unhappy with the outcome and wants the elections cancelled. So, you know, you try to ask on what basis? We have no perfect election in the world. You remember the Al Gore-George Bush election. So don't expect, and how old was America? 200 and something years about at that time. And they still had a blip in an electronic voting system. We are doing it for the third time. But I know that the current technology available is making electronic voting better.
As a member of the NBA trustee, what is the board doing to address the grouse of Mr. Adesina, and what recommendations has the board made?
The trustees met, we reviewed Dikindele Adesina's petition. We received responses from Dr. Tunde Ajibade, President-elect Olu Akpata, President Paulo Soro, and the ECMBA. And having reviewed the entire body of documents that we had with us, we came to the conclusion that elections, though not perfect, were held in substantial compliance and cannot be cancelled. We have advised Dikindele Adesina, and we have equally advised the President. We have also strongly recommended that there's need for electoral reform. The issues raised by Dikindele Adesina were serious issues, and we think that there should be electoral reform to ensure that those issues do not occur in the future. For example, the Electoral Committee, which was said to have put people in diaspora branch and all that, furnished us with the original list, which had these people in correct branches, and they furnished us with another list after verification, which had been cleaned up, and everybody was put in their correct branch. I think they had what you call a computer glitch, little. So it took some names, you could not find the branches correctly, and put them under what they call placeholders. You just have a place, you just keep them until we sort it out, and then I don't know what happened and how it happened. But we have been shown that document. And then all these issues as to those that did not vote, they issued 2 messages to every voter, one by email and one by text. And they published the total number of failed messages, either by text or by email, which is where people got this 13,000 or 14,000 figure. But they provided the ones that out of that, there are 8,000 of them, 8,000 plus, who actually voted. Because one of the, so if the email failed, the text got to them. Or if the text failed, the email got to them. But the system was recording every failed attempt. So if you look through the system, you will see that. And ECMBA provided us information that we had 62% voter turnout. That can be bad. 62% voter turnout. So I think that the system can be done better. I think that we can make it to work better. but we should all put efforts and put hands on deck so that when we get to this issue of electoral reform, let all ideas come out.
There's been a move by some lawyers to form a parallel association, and I'm sure that you must have heard of it. What do you think of that move?
I've heard about it. Nigerian Lawyers Association. They've sent me some emails. And
They asked you to come and join.
yeah, they invited me to come and join. They sent emails. But the first thing that you will find is where people are inviting you to join an association, but they are faceless. If they have belief and conviction in what they are doing, they should put their names out there. You know, I don't think that anybody who is committed to developing the legal industry in Nigeria will call for bifurcation, for division. What we need to do is to put all hands on deck and make sure that we keep getting things better.
As part of agenda setting for the incoming president and his administration, what do you think that they can quickly do to unite the bar and preserve the association?
There must be the other side. There must be the other view. You must respect the other side. You must respect the other view. To think that you will get everybody to fall in line will be difficult. But the most important thing a president needs to do is to hold himself accountable to the entire Bar Association. Those that voted for you and those that voted against you. It's totally irrelevant at this point. As long as you lead the bar and you put as your primary objective the best interest of the association, that is what unites the bar. People are not looking for perks. People are looking for appointments. They're looking for anything. But even if they are not, they didn't vote for you, and they see that you are acting in the best interest of the bar, whether they were happy to election or they're not happy, if they are persons who are truly committed to the ideals of the Bar Association, then they will come in line. When I had my elections, there were people who never voted for me. But once we did stamp and seal, we put the insurance in place, just for everybody's benefit. So the president needs to, the incoming president and incoming administration, they need to look at what are the challenges the bar faces at this time. How do we address them? They also need to look at electoral reform and set up a group to start to work on electoral reform. Necessarily, you need to amend you may need to amend the constitution, because I don't know what your electoral reform is going to throw up. You understand? So these are the areas that I think are key. For me, this incoming executive needs to pay serious attention to continuing professional development. Things are moving so fast that we need to develop ourselves. I never got a chance to get into that. And I don't think we have made much inroad in that. And that benefits the entire bar. You understand? You look at our court system, things are slow in the courts. Now, as bad as the pandemic is, it has opened our eyes to the need for us to have digitization in our courts. So it has to quickly key in and work with the judiciary. Fortunately, Olu Akpata has been involved in the NBA. He headed SBL. So I think he has an idea of how lawyers work. He worked closely with me when I was president. He worked as secretary of the conference planning committee. He has been co-chair of conference planning. So he's interacted with lawyers at various levels. But the burden on his shoulders is enormous. those who are waiting for him to fail have put the champagne in the fridge, because he carries the hopes and aspirations of a whole generation. He carries the hopes and aspirations of all those who are not senior advocates. He can't afford to fail them. And by the grace of God, he won't fail them.
Welcome back. At the courts, the week began on an interesting note with the Bayelsa Governorship Election Tribunal nullifying the election of Governor Doye Diri. The tribunal also ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to order a fresh elections within 90 days. The verdict follows the petition of the Advanced Nigerian Democratic Party challenging the victory of Governor Doye Diri in the November 19 governorship election on the grounds of exclusion. In a swift reaction, however, the Bayelsa State Governor has appealed the judgment and filed his notice of appeal at the Court of Appeal in Abuja. He listed 12 grounds on which he is challenging the majority judgment of the Bayelsa State Governorship Election Tribunal. But reactions have not stopped trailing that verdict. We have the views of two senior lawyers up next.
Strictly speaking, for me, the majority judgment was indirectly setting aside the judgment of the Supreme Court, which was enforced by INEC, in virtue of which the governor of Bayelsa State, that I have always heard him say is a miracle governor, became governor of that state. So my first reaction is that, with respect, and I mean no harm, it amounts to judicial insubordination for anyone to sit in judgment over the decision of the Supreme Court. Only the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction to set aside its decision, and no persons below the Supreme Court can and should be permitted to interfere with it. And I see the judgments in this regard as an interference with an already settled decisions of the Supreme Court. That's my first reaction. Second reaction is that, assuming I am wrong in my understanding of this analysis, then by virtue of section 285, subsection 14, 9 and 14 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended by the Fourth Alteration Act, the decision of INEC to disqualify the candidate of Advanced Nigerian Democratic Party on the basis that the running mate to the governorship candidate was underage constitute a decision within the meaning of section 285, subsection 9 of the Constitution, and therefore, within the definition of pre-election matter under subsection 14 of that law. What that therefore means is that the tribunal, the majority judgment of the tribunal, was with respect delivered without jurisdiction, because under the Constitution, all pre-election matter must be filed within 14 days from the date of decisions of INEC. And when you read that provision, it's very clear. And when the provision of our laws are clear, then you don't require an interpretation.
It is important to understand that when an election is challenged on the ground that a particular candidate was nominated validly but was unlawfully excluded, what the courts will do in that kind of circumstance will be to set aside the entire election and order a restart, a rerun. In other words, for INEC to go back to its drawing board and then now include the offended party, in this case ANDP. I hear that the matter is not on appeal. So in view of the fact that this matter is basically sub judice, I wouldn't think that it's appropriate for me to make any comments about the likely outcome of it. But essentially, the case that gave rise to the nullification of the election of the 16th of November 2019 was the case of valid nomination but unlawful exclusion.
And just before we go, here's a recap of some of the legal stories we're tracking.
We begin with the report that a magistrate court sitting in Kaduna State has charged a suspect, Nehemiah Adejo, the driver of the car that killed the Air Force officer Tolulokpe Arotile, for culpable homicide and criminal conspiracy. The suspect was arrested and arraigned by the Kaduna State Police Command. He was charged with driving a vehicle which knocked down and killed his secondary school mate, Nigeria's first female fighter helicopter flying officer Tolulokpe Arotile. The incident happened on July 14th this year. When the case came up at the Magistrate Court 1 on Thursday, the 20th of August, the Prosecution Counsel, DSP Martins Leo, asked the court to discharge a second and third suspects as investigation did not find them wanting. Justice Benjamin Hassan granted the request and discharged both suspects. In Lagos, the state government has commenced trial against the owner and the driver of the truck carrying an unlatched container which fell and killed 26-year-old Chidima Ajoku and 2 others. At the State High Court sitting in the Igbohere area, the Attorney General of Lagos, Moyosore Onigbanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, filed an amended 7-count charge of involuntary manslaughter against the defendants. The Attorney General also called the first prosecution witness, a vehicle inspection service officer, Hamed Baruwa, who testified that investigations conducted by his team showed that the truck which caused the accident had no roadworthiness. The witness also testified that the particular portion of the road where the accident occurred had no potholes. He had photographs to back up these claims. Justice Mobolanle Okikiolu Ihile has adjourned till August 26th for continuation of trial. Away from court stories, women lawyers under the aegis of the African Women Lawyers Association have taken to the streets in Lagos to stage a walk against rape and defilement. Carrying placards bearing different inscriptions, the women educated people on the streets about the need to speak up and speak out against the menace.
As instrument to shame these sex offenders and ensure we get justice for the victims and survivors.
They solicited the support of everyone to join in making the country a safe space for women and especially the girl child. Speaker after speaker condemned the act and demanded stiffer penalties for those caught in the act, even as they urged the authorities to wipe out rape in the country. And in a move that is first of its kind, the Nigerian Bar Association Women's Forum has signed a partnership agreement with the New York State Bar Association's Women in Law section. Under the partnership, the two will build professional ties, friendships, network, and undertake joint initiatives to advance and empower women in the legal profession for success. The signing ceremony, which was a private event in compliance with the social distance guidelines, was done physically and virtually both in New York and Lagos. It was witnessed by the president of the New York State Bar, Scott Carson, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Usoro, SAN, the chair of the women's section of both bars, and other officials. The president-elect of the NBA, Mr. Olumide Akpata, who also showed up at the event, promised to support the partnership during his tenure. And we round off with the report that the Nigerian Bar Association has removed the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, as one of its speakers for the annual General Conference of the association holding from the 26th to the 29th of August. At the virtual National Executive Committee meeting of the association held on Thursday, participants voted for the removal and passed the resolution that the invitation extended to the governor by the Annual General Conference Technical Planning Committee be withdrawn and same be communicated to the governor. The withdrawal follows a petition written and signed by a group, the Open Bar Initiative, and also the law firm of Femi Falana, SAN. Both petitions cited alleged human rights violation records of the governor, particularly his handling of the killings in southern Kaduna. Governor El-Rufai, in his reaction, has said he is not deterred by the decision of the NBA and he will continue to speak on matters of national importance. A statement by his media aide also listed some of the actions the governor has taken to address issues of security and violent strife in the state, with a warning that the government will address defamatory statements contained in the petitions. Apart from the El Rufai issue, the trustees of NBA, led by Dr. Olisa Abakoba, has submitted its report on the just concluded elections to the NEC meeting. The trustees admitted that the NBA elections were not perfect, but felt unable to advise that it should be cancelled. The President-elect Olumide Akpata and other elected officials are expected to be sworn in to office at the annual General Conference.
And here's where we adjourn till next week. Don't forget that you can watch again this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Shola Shieli. Thank you for watching.